In the Republic of Moldova, the United States has been drawn into the brutal reality of the Transnistria War. During a particularly vicious skirmish, an American soldier becomes separated from his unit. Rather than waiting for backup, he ventures alone into the shadows of a nearby building. Through his hyperspectral imaging goggles, he discovers a trail of bodies, corpses that appear frozen solid in the dark. As he pushes deeper, he encounters the impossible, a translucent humanoid apparition, invisible to the naked eye but clear as day through his lenses. The soldier's feed transmits everything back to base, but before he can utter a word, the specter passes through him, killing him instantly. Meanwhile, in the United States, a DARPA scientist named Mark is finalizing his latest breakthrough, a machine capable of shattering solid matter using nothing but waves. During a successful demonstration, the military brass immediately pressures Mark to begin human testing for weaponization. Mark is a man of science, not a merchant of death, but his superiors remind him of a cold reality. They work for the government, and the government wants weapons. The army soon orders Mark to Moldova. They aren't interested in his new machine yet. They need him to troubleshoot the very goggles he invented. Upon arriving at the American base in Chisinau, Mark meets General Orland and CIA officer Fran. They show him the final recording of the fallen soldier. Mark's keen eyes catch a flicker on the screen just before the kill. General Orland reveals that security cameras have been flagging these anomalies for weeks. Initially dismissed as electronic interference, the threat became undeniable after their elite soldiers began turning up dead. Autopsies reveal a terrifying contradiction: internal organs frozen solid, while the skin is burned and corroded. Local Moldovan allies are just as baffled, but the local population has a name for the phenomenon. At every kill site, teenagers spray paint the words, "Genocide Aratare," a reference to local myths about the ghosts of war. While the CIA suspects high-tech cloaking, Mark isn't so sure. Determined to see the truth, Mark prepares a high-powered hyperspectral camera, a device capable of seeing far deeper into the light spectrum than standard-issue goggles. General Orland clears Mark to join a Delta Force team on a search-and-rescue mission for a missing squad. As Mark mounts his massive camera to an armored truck, the operators begin to tease the tech guy for messing with their gear. But their commander, Captain Cabrera, quickly shuts them down. He reminds his team that they're riding in trucks Mark's people built, and if anyone can see what's coming for them in the dark, it's him. Major Sessions is far from amused. To him, bringing a civilian into a war zone is a liability, and he forces Mark to swear that this time, his technology will actually protect them. The mission parameters are grim, a 5-story apartment complex deep in insurgent territory where an entire squad vanished 24 hours ago. The objective is simple: rescue the survivors and neutralize any threats. Fran insists the anomalies are merely enemy combatants using advanced electronic camouflage. She shuts down Mark's objections before he can speak and joins the convoy herself. Mark is relegated to the truck, tasked with monitoring the live helmet cam feeds as the team breaches the building. Inside, the silence is heavy. Room by room, they find the same macabre scene, soldiers and insurgents alike, dead from that same inexplicable trauma. A sensor suite picks up movement behind an overturned bathtub. The soldiers move in, discovering a terrified Sergeant Comstock. He is the lone survivor, shaken to his core, swearing that what took his team wasn't human. On the next floor, the nightmare takes form. The team corners one of the specters. A soldier unleashes a full magazine at point-blank range. Every shot hits, but the entity is unfazed. It simply drifts through the man, killing him where he stands. Chaos erupts as the specter moves through the walls, picking off the team one by one. From the truck, Mark pleads for a retreat. Fran refuses, desperate for more data, but Mark snaps back. There won't be anyone left to collect it. As the soldiers resort to desperate grenade tosses, Captain Cabrera finally gives the order to fall back. The survivors scramble out of a window, rappelling down as the specter pursues them to the very edge. As the remaining few reach the truck, Mark finally engages the hyperspectral camera. The feed is haunting. The specter isn't just a blur. It has a humanoid shape and a distinct, recognizable human face. In a final act of defiance, Cabrera turns to fire on the entity, but his bullets find no purchase. He falls like the others. His sacrifice buys the last few soldiers the seconds they need to pile into the vehicle and flee. But their escape is short-lived. In the panic, the truck veers into a minefield. The explosion is devastating. Comstock and the drivers are killed instantly in the crash. Dazed, Mark's first instinct is to salvage the hyperspectral camera from the wreckage. The survivors, limping away from the ruins, find temporary shelter in an abandoned factory. With their radios dead and their standard-issue goggles destroyed in the blast, the reality finally sinks in. They aren't fighting technology. They are fighting something conscious and something supernatural. Now, their only window into the world of the Aratare is the one camera Mark managed to save. The survivors realize they aren't just trapped, they're surrounded. A horde of specters circles the factory, yet they hesitate at the threshold. A perimeter of iron filings, scattered like a protective salt circle, acts as a barrier that burns the entities upon contact. Someone knew how to keep the ghosts at bay. A sudden noise from the back of the building puts the team on high alert. They blow a door off its hinges, only to find two terrified children, Sari and her younger brother Bogdan. Using Fran as an interpreter, the team discovers a massive transmission tower within the room. It's a double-edged sword. The signal is strong enough to reach the base, but it will also broadcast their location to every insurgent within 20 miles. With no other choice, Sessions orders the broadcast. While the soldiers work the radios, Mark questions the children about the iron barrier. Sari reveals it was her father's work. She believes the specters are Aratare, lost souls caught between life and death. When Mark asks to speak with him, Sari leads them to a back room, away from her brother. There, Mark finds the father's body. Sari had dragged him inside after he died, completing the barrier, a truth she's kept hidden from Bogdan to protect him. On the body, Mark finds a map of Masarov, a nearby district by the river, and a necklace with a ceramic tile. Sari confirms that Masarov is where the apparitions first appeared. The base finally responds. A rescue force of helicopters and tanks will meet them at a nearby open plaza at dawn. The location is a death trap with no cover, but Mark has a plan. Using the raw materials found in the factory, he begins crafting improvised grenades filled with iron dust. He also reconfigures the hyperspectral camera into a powerful searchlight, capable of stripping away the specter's invisibility for everyone to see. As they prepare to move, Sari finally tells Bogdan the truth about their father, handing him the necklace as a final memory. Their mourning is cut short by a sound from above. The searchlight sweeps the ceiling to reveal a terrifying sight. The specters are using the power lines to bypass the iron barrier, leaping from neighboring buildings to get inside. The team makes a break for it through a back exit, guided by Sari. Mark keeps the searchlight trained on the pursuing ghosts. For the first time, the soldiers can see their targets. They open fire with iron-filled rounds, and the effect is immediate. The entities aren't just hit, they're damaged. The kinetic impact is so violent it nearly knocks the shooters off their feet, but it works. Creating a makeshift smokescreen of iron fog to mask their retreat, the group reaches the plaza and takes cover inside a rusted, abandoned bus. But as they brace for the final stand, Mark notices the searchlight flickering. Their only way of seeing the enemy is running out of power. The searchlight dies. They are blind, standing in total silence as the sound of approaching footsteps echoes through the plaza. Every shadow feels like a threat, until the darkness is shattered by the high-intensity beams of the rescue tanks. The cavalry has arrived. The tanks' searchlights reveal the true scale of the nightmare. Hundreds of specters cling to the surrounding buildings like vultures. The tanks open fire, and the plaza descends into chaos. In the roar of the engines and the collapse of crumbling walls, the team is forced to dive for cover, unable to warn the new arrivals that their standard ammunition is useless. The rescue goes south in minutes. Soldiers leap from their vehicles, firing blindly, only to be cut down as the specters drift through them. Even the tanks aren't safe. The entities tear into the searchlights, though Mark notices they hesitate around the ceramic plating of the armor. In the panic, a new tragedy strikes. Bogdan, the young boy, realizes he has dropped his father's necklace and runs back into the crossfire to find it. Sari screams for him, but she's too late. Before anyone can reach him, a specter passes through the boy, leaving him lifeless on the pavement. As the specters begin to mass in the center of the plaza, gathering strength for a final sweep, the evacuation helicopters descend. The downdraft from the rotors creates a temporary buffer, slowing the entity's advance. Seizing the moment, Mark smashes his remaining iron grenades onto the ground. The powerful wind from the blades whips the iron filings into a lethal storm, pinning the ghosts back just long enough for the survivors to scramble aboard. As they lift off, the view from the window is apocalyptic. The specters aren't just at the plaza anymore. They are pouring into the streets, an invisible plague spreading across the entire city. Their destination isn't the base. It's been compromised. They are headed for a deep underground refugee bunker. Inside the crowded bunker, the air is thick with desperation. While the soldiers reinforce the entrances, Mark and Fran tend to Sari, who was wounded by shrapnel during the escape. To comfort her, Mark produces the necklace he managed to retrieve from Bogdan's hand. He asks her one more time about her father. Sari's answer provides the final piece of the puzzle. Her father didn't just know about the iron. He was a craftsman who made specialized ceramic containers for Masarov, the local power plant. The heavy doors groan as General Orland arrives with the ragged remains of his command. Only 19 people survived the massacre at the base. They are cut off, unable to reach the outside world, with no plan other than to wait for an end that seems inevitable. The soldiers begin to argue, their spirits broken by an enemy they can't understand. But Mark silences them. He looks at the ceramic tile, the frozen autopsies, and the way the entities reacted to the wind. He finally knows what they are fighting. And it isn't ghosts. The pieces finally click into place. Comstock survived because he hid under a ceramic tub. The specters recoiled from the ceramic plating on the tanks. The extreme cold, the ability to phase through walls, and the vulnerability to iron, it all points to one thing: Bose-Einstein Condensate, a state of matter that exists at the edge of absolute zero. This isn't a haunting, it's a weapon. And if it was manufactured at the Masarov power plant, it can be unmade. Mark realizes his original invention, the wave-shattering machine, can be repurposed to fire plasmic discharges capable of destabilizing this state of matter. The bunker transforms into a frantic workshop. Soldiers scavenge every scrap of electronics while Mark assembles a new arsenal of pulse rifles. They even rig a mechanical Rottweiler robot with a high-intensity searchlight to lead the charge. The team makes their move, flying a direct, dangerous route to the heart of the Masarov plant. As the helicopters hover over the platforms, the first wave of soldiers tests the new weapons. The results are instantaneous. The plasmic pulses tear through the specters, shattering the condensate and proving that the ghosts can finally be killed. With the perimeter secured, Mark, Fran, and a small security detail breach the interior of the plant. Inside, they find a chamber of horrors. The lead scientists are long dead, but their work remains. X-rays of human subjects scanned at a molecular level, and a massive 3D printing assembly line designed to replicate humans in condensate form. This was an industrial-scale creation of war. Mark finds rows of containment cells, many of them shattered. An accident in the lab let the weapons loose, and the scientists were the first to fall. Outside, the battle turns desperate. The specters are beginning to adapt, pulling their fragmented forms back together after being hit. A massive whirlwind of kinetic energy begins to form, a vortex of specter force threatening to overwhelm the remaining soldiers. Deep in the lab, Mark finds the emergency shutdown. As Fran frantically translates the technical sequence, Mark climbs the massive machinery. He ignores the specters breaking free from their cells to swarm him. Working with steady hands, he unlocks the ports and rips the main brackets free. A massive shockwave erupts from the core, throwing Mark from the machine and knocking the soldiers outside to the ground. In an instant, the whirlwind collapses. All across the city and the plant, the specters begin to disintegrate. As they fade into nothingness, the soldiers don't see monsters. They see the agony on the transparent faces of the humans who were trapped in that state, finally finding the peace they were denied. As the dust settles, Fran finds Mark on a lower level of the facility. The silence is broken by a rhythmic, mechanical hum coming from a hidden chamber. Inside, they find the true horror of Masarov. Row after row of glass capsules contain the brains and peripheral nervous systems of living human beings. The scientists hadn't just been scanning people. They were using their consciousness to animate and control the specters. These victims aren't dead, but they aren't truly alive. They are trapped in an eternal state of agony. Mark doesn't hesitate. He begins to disconnect the machines, one by one. Fran tries to stop him, urging him to think about the bigger picture, the data, the science, the implications. Mark looks at her, hands on the cables, and tells her the truth. This is the bigger picture. Giving these souls peace is the only thing that matters. With the threat neutralized, the U.S. Army moves in to secure the area and transport the survivors to a new base. But the victory is short-lived. Peace is a luxury the government cannot afford. Within days, orders are cut for the soldiers to return to the power plant. The mission has changed. They are to retrieve the machinery and reverse engineer the condensate technology. The cycle of war is already beginning again. At the airfield, Mark prepares for his flight back to the United States. He says his goodbyes to General Orland and Fran. Before he boards, Sari approaches him. For the first time, she speaks in his language, a simple thank you, that carries the weight of everything they lost. As the plane climbs into the sky, Mark looks down at the city below, a place where the ghosts of war have finally been laid to rest, even if the world isn't ready to learn from their shadows.